Welcome to another edition of Chicago Crossing Model Railroad Railcar Reviews. And today we are looking at this 60-foot rib-side double plug door high cube boxcar from Microtrains. So I picked this model up on the advice of a viewer. I had used this as a price comparison with the Aurora Miniatures model, which I had previously reviewed about a week or so ago. And I found that Aurora Miniatures model to be really an excellent value. It had excellent detailing, good paint jobs, lots of separately fitted details, metal wheels, body-mounted couplers, and really the only deficiency being the proprietary coupler, which, while more to scale for the actual model, actually doesn't play terribly well with things like Microtrains couplers, which really are kind of the standard in the hobby. So this rail car has an MSRP of $54.95. That's what you can find it for on Microtrains' website. I picked this up from Midwest Model Railroad for $44.87, so around $45. So the question is really between these two, which is the better deal, or which is the best value for the money? And does that MSRP of $55 really makes sense? In other words, is this car really worth $10 more than the Aurora car? Of course, all of this is notwithstanding road names and numbers and things like that. You can obviously purchase a model that is your particular favorite or for a niche to fill. So with all of that prelude, let's go ahead and get this thing unboxed and see what we're dealing with. This is basically the 60-foot rib-side double plug door high cube boxcar. It's a TTX. You can also see the number right there, as well as the road number. So with that in mind, on the back you have a little bit of information. So again, this is a car that is contemporaneous with the Greenbrier car that Aurora Miniatures has produced a model of. The other thing to note is Microtrains also provides a graffitied version of this car, which looks quite cool. So again, big question is this worth the higher MSRP as well as the higher sale price, just as pertains to the value of the model itself and not liveries or things like that? So let's get this open and take a look at what we're dealing with here. So as with all Microtrains models, it comes in a jewel case, has a little protective sheeting on here. And here is the model itself. And so just a little bit of first impression for you on that. Certainly a nice coloring here. You can see it has good detail on it. You can see the patching over the AOK original road registry. And as you can see, it's era specific. It has conspicuity stripes and other things like that. Also has a little bit of a patch out up here on this quadrant of the car. So let's go ahead and remove the model and take a look all around to see what it is that we're dealing with here. All right, a couple of things to note. Number one is there is a small accessory sprue in the back of this case. And if we open that up, what we find are two different sprues. And so let's see exactly what these are. So it looks as if we have what is probably an air hose, and then here we have what looks to be maybe cut levers. Are there instructions on how to fit these items to the car is the next question, because we do have more or less ready to run, but a couple of assemble yourself components to it. And the answer is no, there's no onboard instructions here. So that means on the one hand, you might just have to either kind of use the prototype to determine where these go, or maybe there are instructions online. But taking a look at the overall quality of the model, if we bring the light in a little bit and take a look at some of the detailing here, what you can see is you have quite finely printed data as well as warnings and instructions on the car. You do have some nice data down here as well. What you also have is you have some finely printed data over on this side of the car as well. All of that looks quite nice. We'll take some close-ups of that so you can really see what is there. All of the printing looks very, very clear. Now, if we turn the car slightly to the side, what you can see here is that, once again, these door closure pins are separately fitted. So those latching pins are three-dimensional and not just molded on. If we look at the side here with the brake wheel, what we can tell, the brake wheel is separately fitted. The chain also appears to be separately fitted. We'll take a close-up just to verify that. And then the ladders on the side are also printed in, and those are rather shallow. So you can definitely tell that that is basically just a molded in detail. In addition, you can see that there's fine molding here where you can actually see rivets individually placed over there. That looks quite nice. And you have very nice and fine stirrups down here, which of course are liable to be breakable, but nonetheless, it's good to see that. If we turn and look at the roof, man, the roof is nice and shiny. Definitely looks like brand new galvanized metal. You can also see the individual rivets in there, which is perfect. So you can see where those individual roof plates are actually bonded together. And then over here on the opposite side, of course, you can see some nice detailed printing as well. And once again, we'll take some close-up photos of that so you can see it in more detail. Now, as far as additional detail on this car, you can see there are very nice and finely etched footplates here. The other thing you can tell, I just rotated the trucks here. These are body-mounted couplers, so this is in contrast to the typical microtrains sort of normal model where those tend to be mounted to the trucks. So if we turn this underneath, a couple things that you notice. Number one is, once again, you notice the body-mounted coupler mechanisms here. You also see a couple of other key features here. So you do actually have metal wheels on these cars, and these are low-profile wheels, so those should work nicely on Code 55 track. And then on the underside itself, you do actually see that you have proper separately fitted details here as pertains to stuff like the braking mechanisms, the air reservoir, as well as the cabling over here. That's all nicely separately fitted. And the underside detail looks good, so there's nothing really skimped on over there. So we'll turn that back. Up next, let's go ahead and get this car weighed out and see what we're looking at in terms of its weight. All right, let's go ahead and get this model on the scale and see what we are dealing with. So a car of this length, this is a 4.5-inch car from end to end, not counting the couplers, of course. This should be 1.2 ounces total weight if it is indeed at the proper NMRA standard. So if we place this onto the scale, we are almost there, but not quite. So it's a little bit underweight at 1.15 ounces. I don't think that's exactly terrible, but some of the other models that I've looked at, either meet or even slightly exceed that. If we compare that with the model that I just reviewed, which was the model from Aurora, that car weighs in again at 1.45, so it's actually a tad overweight. Certainly it means it's going to be a little bit heavier on the rails. However, that car was actually quite free rolling, and so I'm not worried about a string of those necessarily having a problem. However, let's go ahead and do a comparison now with the Aurora, as well as with a more standardized microtrain double-door 60-foot car. And we're back, and as you can see, I've set out our model of interest. This is the microtrains model we're reviewing. Over here you can see this is the GATX Greenbrier car from Aurora, which I've reviewed last time. And then over here is a more standard, although weathered, microtrains boxcar model. This is exactly the same one that I had used as a comparison before with the Greenbrier model from Aurora. So what's the big difference among these? Well, number one is weight. This car at 1.15 is again just slightly below the standard NMRA weight. Both of these cars meet and exceed that weight. So even the less expensive microtrains model here actually comes in at a higher weight than the other cars do. So that's always kind of an interesting finding. A couple of other key things here. If we compare the two sort of premium grade models and move this one out of the way, then the one thing that is obvious is the microtrains model is essentially not quite finished. So you still do have to do some limited assembly in order to get this model up to about the same speed as the Greenbrier. Now, Microtrains does have instructions on their website that you can download as a PDF, and I'll share it here as well so that you can pause and just sort of inspect what those instructions look like. This appears to be a standard for all of their models, and in fact, Microtrains nowadays is selling additional applique brake hoses and cut levers so that people can start to add those details onto other Microtrains models as well. So in this case, you notice they're molded in distinctive colors. So the cut lever is actually the same color as the car. The brake hoses are, as you would expect, black. Now this is in contrast to the model from Aurora Miniatures, which again shares a lot of the same detail characteristics. But as we explored last time, if you look at the end of it, what you notice is that while the cut lever makes quite a bit of sense in terms of its color, the air hose is actually just the same molded plastic color as the rest of the car, which is unlikely to be prototypical. It's a relatively, minor quibble, but nonetheless, these are just differences between the two. So what you're getting basically in this case for an MSRP of 54 as opposed to an MSRP of about 43 or so is in this case a model that you do have to do some finish assembly on. Now I think all of us who have done model railroading for a while have built cars from kits, and so that's not an issue, but usually what that means is you get a price discount related to the fact that you do have to do some final assembly. So to get this up to about that standard in terms of detail, you do have to take 5 minutes of your time and add a couple of parts. That is literally no big deal. But does that make this car worth 54 as opposed to the price of the Aurora? Well, from a dollar to dollar perspective, I would say no. This is also a much lighter model, which means you don't have quite the heft to it, even though it is relatively close to NMRA standards. I've obviously not taken these things apart to see what the weighting is like inside of there. Once again, I think all of us as model railroaders are pretty used to opening up cars and adding additional weight onto those cars. I think most of us are pretty used to taking cars apart and adding additional weight to them in order to get them up to NMRA standards. So really what it comes down to is you are paying about $5 more for this car. You do have to do a little bit more work. In terms of the detail and the overall quality of the build, I think they're about equivalent from that respect. And so I really say it's kind of a choice that you have to make as a buyer as to whether you want some of the specifics associated with these cars in terms of the patching, the specific liveries and things like that. If we bring back in the other Microtrains model as a point of comparison, again, this earlier Microtrains model is heavier. This is a factory graffitied model, and I've added a couple little bits of additional graffiti to it. And certainly it looks quite good. It doesn't have the same level of fitted detail, and it has the more classically styled plastic wheels that still have low profile, but they're not the quality of metal wheels. And you also have truck mounted couplers, and if you look at details like the stirrups, these are actually pretty nice, but still not quite as fine as the stirrups on the other model. And again, a lot of other features seem to look relatively similar between them. But suffice it to say, you are looking at a more expensive model that you do need to do some finish work on. So dollar for dollar, which is the better value? I would argue probably this one from Aurora. Why is this one more expensive? Well, one possibility is because it is made in the USA. This is not. That may be a part of it. At the same time, we have also seen models from Bachmann that are actually as expensive as this one, that are also made in overseas and are as expensive. With that in mind, I do think this is a really, really good model. I think it has everything that I would want, and it's really great to see Microtrains kind of starting to put together some really nice models with these very premium features on them. I think the community will respond really well to this sort of thing. All right, let's go ahead and get this thing on the layout, and we'll see how it performs. Welcome back to the layout. As you can see, we've got our TBOX car on to the track. I decided, since I was going to make a little operations video for this model, I might as well put some buildings back, but I decided to put them all in random places. So you're kind of looking at the alternate universe Chicago crossing where anything is possible. And actually, you know, it's another reason not to glue stuff down. You can always move it around if you get bored. So anyway, first off, let's see how the free rolling behavior of this car is. I'm gonna scoot that Boxcar out of the way. And, you know, just a minimal nudge, and this thing rolls pretty nicely. So yeah, not too much friction in there. It is a light car, and maybe that has some to do with it, but at the same time, that's actually pretty good free rolling. Now, this has body-mounted Microtrains couplers, and so I imagine coupling should be pretty easy. In the spirit of everything being all mixed up on this layout, I've decided to run this train completely out of period with a Milwaukee Road switcher up at the front and a Milwaukee Road transfer caboose at the back. All right, let's back up our locomotive and see how everything comes together. So we'll be connecting the Boxcar into the Boxcar. And, you know, as per usual, it's N scale. This coupler is just slightly out of whack, and so they weren't actually connecting each other. But once they're aligned, man, that was about as perfect as you get. Well, they come together, but just not quite. With coupling out of the way, let's go ahead and get this thing moving.